What's going on, everybody? It's Nomad, and today I have this custom clone pilot for you in an OG classic style. I think he's amazing, and he's a perfect blend of realistic and animated style, with a little bit of that 2005 LEGO flair. Let's go ahead and pull out our decal sheet. We'll need a pilot and a grunt decal. To make this custom, we'll need a little bit of paint, but more on that later. The parts you will want from the grunt is the black headband and the blue strips on the cheeks with the rebreather, that way you can fully create your own custom clone pilot. Once you get all the parts separated and toss the visors away from the decals, before we get too far into this, I do want to let you know I am missing the segment where I'm applying the yellow headband and the black headband onto the helmet itself, but I do have the rest of the footage. I don't know what happened, but I also have a surprise. The arms I've got are pulled from a Series 22 Winter Guardian. The dual molded arms work perfectly for this custom since LEGO released it in sand blue, so I sanded it down and I have it here for you in this video. Now that we have the decal all separated and cut up into all these little pieces, we can go ahead and start decaling the helmet itself. I recommend starting with the yellow headband and then the black headband, and then from there we can just follow the video to complete the helmet and the rest of our clone pilot. We're going to be using some solutions called Microset and Microsol. These solutions are going to help the decal bind to the helmet and allow it to form around the helmet's curve. If you do end up having some issues where the decal wants to fold or curl under itself, stick it back into the water and let it try and unfold itself gently, placing it back up and down, and then you can slide it up and onto the side of the cup and out, and that should help you straighten out the decal and get it to able to use still. And I know it happens to me a lot, so don't freak out whenever it happens. It is salvageable. It will just take some time and patience to try and place it back into the spot that you need it and get it to unfold. But once we start trying to move the decal and try and get it into the spot that we need it, now we can move on to the cheeks. What you're going to be doing is trying to line up the gray slip into this little crevice between the eye and the dent for the cheek. You'll see this little strip between the two. We're going to try and apply that to there. And if you need to see, you can always rewind the video or pause. But once we have that applied and pressed on with our applicator sponges, we can apply our Microset and seal that on there. That way we can go ahead and move on to the other cheek. You do have to be gentle while holding the helmet with the decals applied to it. The decals can shift and move with some very light pressure. So be careful to also check and make sure everything is staying in place, but we can easily use our applicator sponge to just press it back down into the right spot we need it. I'll also have a vote going while this video has been posted or being posted, so I'll also leave a link down in the description, that way you can go and vote for what you want to see next. But let's continue. After applying the cheeks, I did end up going in with some Citadel paint and painting on some Averland yellow sunset. That way I could pop out some more of the detail and make the yellow stand out on the top of the forehead with a brighter contrast, and made all the details just pop, and allowed me to paint on the antenna as well. And I think it looks better for me, just personally. And it's a nice smooth, and it still feels like LEGO. You do have to use a little bit of water when you're applying it. You do not want to use it straight out of the bottle, or you're going to ruin the decal. You have to use very thin amount of paint. But now we'll go ahead and start applying the rebreather and getting the face looking just perfect. We are going to look for these circular vent parts for the rebreather, and then we're going to also look for the giant gray mouthpiece for the pilot. We'll go ahead and apply some Microsol to the chin and try and apply the pilot's rebreather right here. We're going to try and apply it right onto the mold. That way we have a nice levitated piece that stands off the helmet and creates some little extra attention of detail. If your decal ends up not being straight on to where you want it to be, all you have to do is take your tweezers and try and adjust and play with it until it's just perfect where you need to. And then what you want to do is take your applicator sponge and firmly but gently press it into place. And once you have it all nice on there, we're going to apply some microsol to make it curve around the mold and then make it feel like as if it was printed onto the piece. And then we're going to take some microset and apply it on and make it all seal into place. The reason I didn't apply the face already and save that till the end is because I didn't want any of the smaller pieces that's used to move around or shift because they're so small and delicate. And then we'll just go ahead and apply the cheeks. With these smaller parts on the face itself, I do like to flip the helmet upside down. That way I can see if pieces are starting to line up more accurately. The cutout visor acts almost as a guide. But whenever you have the face upright, you almost don't get that guide and you can have the chance of it being offset from the center of the helmet. And you can also see I even made the mistake of flipping it upright. Next, I did end up snipping off a little piece of the visor because I thought the nose would be a little bit more defined if I could have this little strip of black right between the visor and the mouthpiece. And I think it looks very nice. I think it was the added little touch of detail I was needing. And all you have to do is just slip off a little piece of black from any of the edges of the old clone visor that we set aside in our little spare bins box. But now as we continue forward, I'm now applying the 3 black little strips that go on the upper part of the nose for the clone pilot. I'm going to try and apply it right under the nose and the middle part of the visor, getting it as close as I can without losing a white edge between the strips and the nose. I want to see just a fine edge between that, giving it an illusion of detail or higher value in the face. You do need to still be gentle with these because these are some of the smallest parts you are applying. You have run the risk of very well splitting the decal whenever you're moving or adjusting the parts. So be very gentle with microsol and microset because even the brush can move it or even break the decal while it's on the helmet. If you do pay attention enough, you can notice that I had broke the decal on the other side of the helmet. Whenever I was applying it, I had applied just a little too much microsol and my tweezers just broke the fine little thin film that the decal holds onto and it adjusted everything. It is very easy to avoid just by not applying as much, but whenever you're pressing it on, still you want to try to use as much pressure as you can, but gently just ease on and off. Now we're going to try and apply our cheeks and get those little blue strips just perfect and nice and lined up. And remember, if you watched the first video, we're going to try and make sure that they're facing each other like a mirror image, because it is very easy to actually have these decals turn on you, and then when you apply them with the applicator sponge, it will be very noticeable, to say the least. But I still have full confidence that you can do it, and just take your time and be patient with it. This is not a race. We're still just trying to do this for fun and trying to make the best product that we can. Time is your best friend. Take as much of it as you want when you're doing this. And as you see, it's not very hard to flip these little blue stripes if you apply them wrong. It's very easy to just take your tweezers and spin them around. The microsol and water should still be loose enough when you put it on that you can just get them to face perfectly like a mirror onto the face of the helmet. And after you've put the second one on, we have completed the helmet. I do end up having these little extra parts from my spare bins lot. They're little circular dots. I'm not sure what I'd stripped them from, but I thought they would work perfectly for the earmuffs on the helmet to add that 2005 look of the little circular rings. In 2005, when LEGO had put out their own Clone Pilot and other series with this helmet, they had these little circular rings on the side of the earmuffs, and I thought that would be a nice little nod for that little callback. They are very simple, and if you wanted to, you could even chop up a second respirator from a grunt helmet or any other like spare bits that you have and add them onto the earmuffs, and they would work perfectly fine too. they'd even be a little bit bigger to match that old 2005 look. I think if you'd want to do this at a cost-effective level, instead of using spare bits, you'd probably want to go over to Jonka Toys and buy the respirator bits. We can go ahead and set this aside now that we're finished and apply some micro set. That way we can let it dry and seal in all the decal goodness that we've just applied and spent all these hard spent hours and have this beautiful looking helmet now. And we don't want to ruin any of that. So we're going to go ahead and set that aside and move on to start doing the body. I do end up being a little faster in this part of the video because I do feel like the helmets are the more unique part of the channel and what would be needed covered the most. But I am going to start throwing these segments in at the end, showing you how to do the body and seeing how the body's done for the specific helmet and seeing the full creation of the characters. And just in general, see how every little piece is done and see my process in it. As you can see, I do end up using the animated style realistic body decal instead of the Return of the Sith body decal. I think it brings it a little bit closer to being a unique custom and just a little bit more in today's modern edge. There is a few Return of the Sith figures that even came out, but I just feel like this looks a little nicer and can fit into even the more modern armies that we can all build and enjoy. When you are cutting the decals out, you can see here I'm even cutting as close as possible to the body as I can, with not showing any of these gray lines on the outside. These are more of like a guide. If you do cut closer to the black line that they have on these decal sheets, you can wrap the decal around the body itself to try and get that little edges to curve down and take the time to cut little strips where the decal would fold instead of rounding it over, or you run the risk of the decal also popping off the body. A little trick I like to use is cut these little corners off. Gives it a little bit more support towards the edges of the decal. Whenever you're trying to apply it, it should also help prevent folding and creasing whenever you're applying it onto it, and should just help you a little bit more whenever you're going at body decals and arm decals. I do the same way for arms, legs, and the body every time, and if I can try to, even the helmet. Another little trick I like to use is whenever I'm using the applicator sponges to apply the decal onto the body, I'll actually use 2 of them and press the body into the applicator sponge. But now we'll go ahead and move on to the legs. I did have some video corruption with the first leg, but I do have the second for you. The only piece that I don't cut down at the corners is actually the bottom of the leg decal. I like to have that as a smooth line as possible, that way I have an edge to line up to the bottom of the foot. But whenever you're cutting the decal out for the leg, make sure to cut it thin and make sure you have all the details still there. And I like to cut it into almost like an arrow, aiming towards the top of the minifig. That way, whenever you're trying to apply it and you're having issues with the legs, it will have less to try and peel up, and it will have more of a smoothing function instead of a grinding, peeling motion whenever the legs are moving. I do like to apply a little extra microsol whenever I'm getting the rounded edge. I do find that whenever I'm trying to line up the legs, it is a little more difficult than the rest of the body. But we'll go ahead and move on to the arms after we're all finished up here and showcase off the legs real quick. I think the sand blue with these decals is fantastic. It creates a lovely pop color. We'll go ahead and move on to the arms. And I like these dual molded arms. They are perfect for this model. I think the sand blue is a rare color to even find in this dual molded color. So to even find one in a Series 22 pack that was lost in a Dollar General was amazing for me, because I was able to create this amazing video for you all and have a better looking minifig at the end of it. I think the work put into it is well worth it, even though the minifig series is, I think, discontinued now, because I think it's on 24 if I'm correct. A Applying the decal onto the arm is not hard. I feel like the arm is one of the more fun pieces to play with, just because I think trying to line up the decal on the arm and getting the smooth edge to curve around the top and around the elbows is just a little bit of the more daily practice. That way you can have a better looking helmet and overall just have more fun with it. Because we're just all having fun in the end of it and trying to make our own custom LEGO minifigures. And you can still use all of these same practices and same decaling tutorials on a regular decaled helmet. You just have to do less cutting, or if you wanted to add more stuff to your decals and make them more unique to you, you know now how to create your own customs using small little bits that you can cut out from the decal sheets themselves. I do like to apply a little extra microsol when applying the arm, because it'll help the decal curve and form to the edges and curves of the LEGO pieces. Too much will peel these decals off and make them almost like a rubbery, sticky feeling on top of it that can peel off just with the slightest touch. But still, in the end of it, you'll have these beautiful dual molded sand blue arms for your clone pilot. Now that we have a fully decaled clone pilot, we can then take him and set him aside to let him dry and a coat of spray paint on him. Any will work, whatever your preference. I do like to have this little spray paint stand built. It's just made up of broken parts and chipped away pieces. I fast forwarded a little bit so you didn't have to wait for all the drying and all the spray painting. But now you can see the fully finished clone. I hope you've enjoyed the video and join the community of nomads in the middle of nowhere.